something is not quite right. Election Commission is now suddenly asking all voters registered after 2003 to validate their voting rights. Why this sudden and urgent need to go in for a special revision in the monsoon months? Why didn't the Election Commission consult political parties and the stakeholders formally before launching this exercise? Why doesn't the EC openly say that it is doing a de facto national register of citizens instead of once again hiding their intent behind their wide constitutional powers? Namaskar, hello and welcome friends once again to Straight Bat, my weekly video blog where, as the title suggests, I comment with a straight bat. Today on Straight Bat, an urgent issue that should concern each and every right-thinking Indian citizen who still has faith in our democracy. At the heart of this faith has always been the idea of a free and fair election where everyone gets to exercise their constitutional right to vote without any fear of not finding their name on an electoral roll. And I emphasize the word everyone. Sadly, and I say this with great regret, it is that faith which is in danger of being seriously shaken. Something is not quite right. I won't use the word rotten yet in the Election Commission of India's functioning. The most recent and contentious issue is the Election Commission of India's sudden decision on June 24th to completely revamp the electoral rolls in Bihar, ordering what is described as a special intensive revision or SIR ahead of the November elections in Bihar. Frankly, this decision defies logic. Let me tell you why, and please listen carefully to 10 key observations being made without fear or favor. Number 1. Between June 2024 and January 2025, the Bihar state election machinery completed a revision of the electoral rolls called a Special Summary Revision 2025. The question therefore is this: what changed in the last 5 months between January and June for the Election Commission to suddenly decide that we need another completely fresh revision of the rolls, that too just on the eve of the Bihar elections? Are we to presume that the earlier revised rolls, made as I said just a few months ago, completed a few months ago, were flawed or in some way fraudulent? If so, how? No clear answer as yet from the Election Commission. Election Commission chup hai. Secondly, what makes this decision and this issue even more worrying is that the Election Commission is now suddenly asking all voters registered after 2003 to validate their voting rights with a restrictive list of any one of 11 documents, including birth certificates, matriculate certificates, caste certificates, domicile certificates, forest rights certificates, among others. Please note, as reported by the Hindu newspaper, at least 5 of these 11 documents sought by the Election Commission in Bihar do not even indicate the applicant's place or date of birth, one of the prerequisites for inclusion in the rolls. Please also note that those born between 20 and 38 years of age, i.e. born between July 1, 1987 and December 2, 2004, have to attach 2 proofs, those of their own and also one of their parents, father or mother. Those between 18 and 20 years of age, that is born after December 2004, have to attach 3 proofs, their own and that of both their parents. Please think about this, how complicated it is getting. Aadhaar, voter identity cards, ration cards or PAN cards have not been included in the required list, even though these are the most readily available documents in most households. Instead, documents that are not often easily accessible are being sought. The question therefore is the EC acting as a facilitator to encourage people to go out and vote, or as an obstructor? where the burden of proof is being reversed and placed on the voter to prove, in a sense, his identity and citizenship. And why create so many categories of voters with different requirements based on their age? That is a recipe for more chaos. Prima facie, my friends, this is a classic example of state overreach and bureaucratic insensitivity. Thirdly, Bihar has held 5 assembly elections and general elections since 2003, the most recent being in 2024. If a voter could vote in those elections based on the existing electoral rolls, what has suddenly changed to make the ECI ask those very voters to provide fresh documentary proof of their voting rights? Is the EC admitting that many people who have voted in all these elections between 2003 and 2025, including last year's general elections, were in some way fraudulent voters? If so, the EC must come clean on this. If not, why this sudden and urgent need to go in for a special revision in the monsoon months, getting citizens to run around filling forms and collecting fresh documents, and then possibly having to run again from one authority to another to appeal in case their names are not on the rolls, and then try and meet a short deadline ahead of the elections in November? Fourthly, the Election Commission has now told the Supreme Court that it won't accept Aadhaar cards as documentary proof because Aadhaar cards are not proof of citizenship but only of identity. Sure enough, multiple Aadhaar cards has been an issue that has been flagged off in the past. But, and it's an important but, why did the same Election Commission of India just say a few months ago in March itself that it was taking steps to link the electoral photo identity cards, the epic voting cards, with Aadhaar in compliance with relevant constitutional provisions and Representation of People's Act provisions? Suddenly, the same Aadhaar cards that most citizens use for their daily needs are being discarded. Fifthly, why is the Election Commission creating a differentiation on the ground between rural and urban voters, as several news reports have indicated? In urban areas, news reports are showing that the enumerators are easily satisfied with Aadhaar cards while filling forms. But in rural areas, on the other hand, documents are being asked for, or document after document is being asked for, that many people, especially the rural poor, are not able to may not possess. Why in God's name are we creating, my friends, two classes of citizens, making some people once again run from pillar to post for passport photos and other documents which they simply don't have and do not have the means to get them? Is it the EC's case that they don't trust the citizenship credentials of lakhs of India's poor and therefore wish to place an additional burden on them? Does the EC want to purify the rolls? Or is it that the Election Commission specifically wants to focus on some of Bihar's large Muslim minority areas by dog whistling and insidious campaign, media campaign, dare I say, that the Muslims of a border state like Bihar, a majority of whom have lived in the state for centuries, are ghuspetiyas or infiltrators whose credentials need to be checked? And is the timing, my friends, designed solely for Bihar and then also for Assam and Bengal early next year, 3 border states with a large Muslim population? If so, why doesn't the EC openly say that it is doing a de facto national register of citizens instead of once again hiding their intent behind their wide constitutional powers? Remember, citizenship, as the Supreme Court has observed, is the remit of the Home Ministry, not of the Election Commission. Sixthly, let's turn to another aspect of Bihar's demographics: the large pool of unskilled or semi-skilled migrant labor. How does the Election Commission expect these workers within the next few weeks before the July 25th deadline to leave their place of work in distant parts of the country, come back to their hometown or village and fill up the forms with attached documents, particularly because who is ordinarily resident as per the Representation of People's Act and can therefore vote in their village is still not certain. But denying a migrant their native vote to go back to their home village could render them politically invisible. What safeguards exist for them, especially for the seasonal migrants? Number 7, why is there still so much confusion and flip-flops whether the forms can be submitted without documents at this draft stage? Apparent relaxation like the Bihar CEO's public appeal in newspapers to accept forms without documents seems like an afterthought. Is this ambiguity that exists still deliberate? Since the Election Commission had previously stated that names would be struck off without document submission beginning the draft stage. What's the truth? Why the ambiguity? Eighthly, ECI sources keep citing that the previous special intensive revision took place way back in Bihar in 2003, 22 years ago, and was complete in 31 days. However, a 2004 press release shows that the earlier revisions, including appeals, etc., spanned 6 months, with even fewer voters at the time. Why doesn't the Election Commission of India then make public the process that was followed during this special intensive revision in 2003 so that a fair comparison can be made with the current process? Why this opacity? How can you create two categories of voters, my friends, those who were already on electoral rolls as of 2003 and who by every account therefore do not have to submit any such documents and who did not have to submit any such documents at the time, and those who have entered the rolls post 2003 and are now being pushed to do so? You're creating two categories of voters. Question number 9, a very basic question. Why didn't the Election Commission consult political parties and the stakeholders formally before launching this exercise? While the ECI does have the authority under the Constitution to revise electoral rolls at any time under the ROP Act, involving political parties could have ensured that some of the confusion could have been avoided if issues like intent, citizen proof, the right time frame and the exclusionary risk of documentation from documentation were discussed. Or is it the case that the Election Commission believes it doesn't need to build any consensus while taking major decisions? Because the Election Commission believes it's a law unto itself. Finally and 10thly, let me ask this. The Election Commission hasn't held a single detailed press conference while undertaking this major exercise. What is the EC scared of? Or is it now the rule in this country where the Prime Minister also chooses not to do a single press conference in 11 years that constitutional bodies believe they are not answerable or accountable to the people of the country, to you and I? If the Election Commission believes all is well with this special intensive survey, may I recommend that they watch the ground reports on India Today, read the Indian Express, read digital sites like Reporters Collective, Scroll, Wire. Everyone can't be wrong. And if they are so sure of their stand, why doesn't the EC call an all-party meeting and indeed a press conference to clear all the doubts? You know, my friends, it is the opacity of the Election Commission that is most troubling and leaves the Commission open to the charge that it has something to hide, be it now in Bihar or indeed in Maharashtra and Haryana last year. This doesn't mean, as the opposition insists, that just because the election commissioners are Modi government appointees, they are beholden to the government and this is one big vote bandi conspiracy. For that, we will need far more conclusive evidence after this SIR exercise is complete. We can't go only by fears and doubts at this stage. Let's also be clear. When the Congress was in power for years, They too were appointing election commissioners of their choice without due consultation. There were troubling questions raised then too. Only the ECs at the time were far more open to answering those questions without hesitation. I recall, for example, having a particularly acrimonious exchange once with the one and only T.N. Seshan. At that time, it was ironically over a 1995 Bihar election where Seshan was accused of acting as a big bully and additional security forces were deployed in the state. Lalu Yadav, Chief Minister at the time, accused Seshan of trying to prevent the poor from voting, while the CEC insisted all he was doing was ensuring a peaceful poll. The difference, my friends, is that Seshan was visible, did not hesitate from answering all queries, be it from netas or journalists. Today, the Election Commission is less visible, but also as a result, non-transparent and non-accountable. Most crucially, the voters trusted Seshan. There was no credibility crisis. Sadly, that can't be said about the EC today. This serious credibility crisis is what demands that the EC open itself up to scrutiny, else its status as a neutral umpire will be further eroded. A neutral umpire must bat for no single political party, but for we the people of this great country. As the title of this blog says, it's time to say, Election Commission, Haazir ho. That was the straight bat. Do of course subscribe to my YouTube channel for many more such videos. For now, stay well, stay safe. Jai Hind, Namaskar.